Hey YouTube, I am here giving a review on a new quadcopter frame that I purchased. This is the Quanum XJ470. It is the first thing I've ever purchased from Quanum. I believe Quanum is another one of Hobby King's brands. I've never seen them anywhere else. But when I saw the daily on this the other day, it looked like a really nice frame. So I did not have a quadcopter currently. The last quadcopter I built was the Hobby King X650 or XF650 or something like that. It was a piece of junk. This here, I am very pleased with. There are a couple things that I'll go over throughout the video. But let's start out with packaging. When I got it, it comes in this box here. Just this little box that has Quanum, I didn't even say Quanum on it. Yeah, it does right there. But that's it. And inside this box was probably about 15 to 20 different bags. Each bag, say it was the landing gear, came with the landing gear hardware. So it was very easy to figure out exactly how to set this up. There were no instructions in this box at all, and I guess Hobby King has no way of getting instructions, which I think is ridiculous. When you buy a frame, you want instructions. You want to know how to put it together easily. This is just crazy. Hobby King, shame on you. Offer instructions with your products, especially on frames that not everybody knows what they're doing, especially if it's their first frame. As far as first frame, I do not recommend this to be anybody's first frame to build if you're building a quadcopter. It is a little bit harder to place everything, the electronics, and to figure out exactly what you want to do with a quadcopter. This build probably took me longer to figure this thing out than it did my Taro, which was, I don't know, I probably have about 4 or 5 hours into this build. Some of it was probably drinking beer as well, so I can't count all that. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, like I said, there was no instructions, so you had to figure it out a little bit on yourself. Hobby King does have quite a bit of photos that help you figure out which parts go where. Also, there are no extra screws. If you lose any of these screws, you're really going to have to figure out another way to find those screws that will work or something like that, because there are 0 extra screws. Everything has a purpose, and they will all be used by the end of the build. So the first thing you might notice is the color of this plate. I did not like the original gray color that Quantum chose, and also the big Quanum XJ470 logo right across the top. I thought it was extremely ugly, and it did not fit the frame one bit. So I actually took that and spray painted it red first. It came out really bright red, and then I just dabbed it up, touched it up with a little bit of black spray paint to give it a, I don't know if you can see it if I get closer. Give it a little bit of a texture and a nicer look than just the gray. Came out pretty good. If you want to keep the gray, that's all preference, and it's up to you. I thought it looked like hell. So let's talk about the quality of the components on this. Everything is hard anodized CNC aluminum. All the motor mounts, every little bit that goes in between the frames, everything that's actually a vertical piece is all CNC hard anodized aluminum. And I'm very impressed by the quality of the CNC work. There's no burrs, there's no marks, mars, anything. It's actually very, very high quality aluminum that I can see, and it all fit together perfectly. There's a couple holes that are pre-drilled, and every hole in the aluminum matched up with the holes on the carbon fiber plates. Now, as for the carbon fiber booms, they look awesome. Let's see if I can. I don't have a macro lens here. I apologize. They look awesome. As for the plates, I see a lot of three-dimensional qualities in the carbon fiber weave. I don't know if the camera shows it, which means that there's a lot of epoxy used inside the frame, inside the plates here, and not just the weave. So there's not as much carbon fiber as there is epoxy, I don't think. Now that's the quality of the carbon fiber used in the frame. The aluminum is good. The tubes are good. The only thing that has yet to be, that I wish was a little better, was the screws that they packaged this with. The screws are very soft. If you don't have a really clean Allen key or hex key that you use to tighten these up, if they're not fitting perfectly, it will mar the screws. It will strip them out, and they're very soft. Just be very careful when you tighten them down. I've had a couple strip. So let's continue with the actual features of this frame. It is a dual layer frame. You can put electronics down here, electronics here, and if you wanted to, you can put electronics on the bottom, or even the arms. There are spaces in the motor mounts. Let's see if I can focus up on it here. There are spaces here in the motor mounts that I'm not sure if they plan on putting ESCs in there. Some they are rounded out. My 20 amp ESCs don't even fit in there. And, you know, this thing is a larger frame, so 20 amp ESCs are basically the smallest you should really be putting on this for the right setup. And I think that's pointless. I have 30 amps on here, 30 amp ESCs. So, like I said, the mounting hardware places, there is ample space, but you have to be very, very diligent on how you use it. If you look on mine, I have pretty much everything off of the top plate here. I have the complete top plate available for whatever I want to use on top of it. The NASA is down in the center there, and I'll open it up a little bit and I'll show you exactly what I did. Now, another feature of the frame is these thumb bolts that actually hold the arms in place. As this folds, each arm folds backwards. When I first saw this idea, I was a little worried. I thought that the thumb bolts themselves were actually stopping the boom from actually moving, and they would hit the thumb plate and not be able to move. And I worried about some kind of give or something. But actually, I'll move one here. Now, I don't have all my screws in right now as I'm trying to do this video, and I'm not done building yet and everything like that. So this here won't give like this. There's not screws in it, but these thumb bolts actually do help while you're building. They'll keep the frame in place. All you need is these four frames to hold the top plate on, or the center plate, whatever you want to call that, and that allows you to build a little better. But what I want to say is, when you take the thing out, the thumb screws out, these are what the thumb screws go through. These little U-bolts, that's what the thumb screw is actually holding. It's not resting against the boom or anything like that. They're actually solid holes that are holding these booms in place. That is an unbelievable, I want to say, idea. It works incredibly well. Once they're screwed in, they are strong as hell in whatever position they're in, frontwards or backwards. So that's a great idea on the way they designed this. When you're building it, one thing that the directions would have helped with, there are two different sizes booms. There's two that are slightly longer than the other two. The longer booms go in the front, just the way they're designed. And they're pre-drilled. They work in the front set of U-bolts here instead of the back. Remember that when you're building, if you decide to get this quadcopter. This thing on the internet says that it can hold between, I believe it was 18 millimeter all the way up to 40 millimeter motors. These motors I have on here are Sunny Sky 3508s. I don't think I can actually get it's a little. You can't read the fine print, but they are Sunny Sky 3508s. They do fit on the motor mounts. However, you can only get two bolts that are pre-drilled in the CNC aluminum to line up with these motors. I never really liked that. I always wanted the full 4 bolts, but the more I think about it, 2 bolts are plenty. What I ended up doing, instead of drilling them all out of the CNC and trying to make them fit, which I don't even know if they will, because the other 2 screw holes are so wide apart, and I don't think that you can drill them. One thing that I did was use this stuff on the two. Loctite thread locker. Make sure you get the removable one. They do sell a red color one that is non-removable. But you want to be able to take these off if necessary. But it should help against them loosening up any time during flight. Now what you're seeing here is the two back motors that are supposed to pull all the way in. These do not line up well enough for these thumb screw holes when you have larger motors. As you see, they hit. And they do not allow for you to get the thumb screws in to both holes. You can get one in, but the other one will be pushed aside. These motors here will fold all the way back, and they will be able to lock into place in those thumb screw holes right there. Okay, so I have the thumb screws taken out, and I will take the cover off here and show you what the inside looks like. Now, what you see here, I have the NASA slightly higher to the front than the back. Don't really know how all that's going to work. I haven't flown this thing yet. I have no idea how the balancing issues work. But I think that should look pretty good, especially if I can change the battery. I'm going to be putting the battery underneath it. I'll show you that in a little bit. So, this is what really took a while. I wanted this thing to be pretty clean. Obviously, it is unbelievably clean, actually. I built a breakout cable that comes in from these. Let me open this up just a bit here. It comes in from down below and comes up, and it goes to a red up this leg, a red up that leg, a black up that leg, and a black up that leg. Making your own breakout cable is really a must for this frame. I wouldn't really... You could use the pre-made quadcopter ones and stuff like that, but these motors have a max amperage of 30 amps. XT60s are really only rated to 60 amps, so that'll only run two motors off one battery. So it's I don't like the XT60s if you're pulling more than 60 amps. These here are the 5.5mm bullet connectors. They can do, I forgot exactly how much amperage they can pull, but they are much, much higher than 60 amps. So, in here, I've just got the cabling for the ESCs, which are below. I will show you how to do them as well, how I did them. And then the wires coming in from each boom going to the ESCs as well. The NASA, the wires coming in from the ESCs below. And then I have... Also, I put two separate connections as well from the battery. This is just an JST connector, and then there's also 3.5mm bullet connectors. Whatever you have and want to hook up, they're there to use. Originally, I put this here for the Tarot to plug in, my gimbal. But my gimbal doesn't really like 4S, and I'm going to be running 4S on this, so I have to figure out another way to work around that battery issue, but I will show you that later. So in here there is some room for mounting. There's not a lot because you do have to deal with the aluminum pieces that when the frame folds you can't have anything blocking them or anything like that. There is some room, however, to do what you need to do. You just have to be incredibly neat, and as you can see here, it's just takes some planning and some dedication. So, I'm going to put the top back on, and I will turn it over, and I'll show you what I did with the ESCs. Okay, as you can see, the thumb screws are back in here, 4 of them, and you can also see how much this helps in the build process. You don't have to have all the tiny little screws in on the plate here to hold it together. Right now, I can pick it up, I'm not doing anything. It's all held together pretty well. So let me go and turn it over and show you what I did with these ESCs. Now, these are the ESCs. This was a little bit more difficult to do. As you can see, I have modified these ESCs each one of them. They are 30 amp multi-star ESCs with Simon K. I modified them. I made them instead of, let's see what I got here. Instead of looking like this, with the motor leads coming out one side and the power leads and the servo wire coming out the other, I have them looking like this. The servo leads and the bullet connectors all coming out the same side. This allowed for a lot of a huge difference in the mounting ideas of these ESCs. Originally, I had them mounted to both sides of the leg landing gear here, but when I did it, it looked so dirty, such a dirty build that I didn't want to keep it like that. So that's when I decided I'm going to modify these ESCs to look much nicer when they're for the final product here. This is not a soldering instructional video. If you do not know how to open these up to turn it from looking like this into this yourself, I would not attempt it. You do need to have some soldering abilities. If you've never opened these up before, obviously you're more than welcome to do so. Just be very careful, because you can ruin your ESCs very easily if you don't know what you're doing once you open this thing up. So please don't ask me how I did it. If you can't figure it out yourself, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Now, the other thing I did was get rid of the positive and the two other wires. I only have a yellow signal wire coming off of this. And I also shortened these wires as well. That always annoyed me, having these really long signal wires and having to coil them up and zip tie them to something else. So that's where you can really get into some trouble when you're soldering inside there, because those connections are very small on that board inside the ESC. So that is what I decided to put those ESCs. Now, as far as battery options, this thing, which I was very happy about, I have a couple of these, which are 8,000 milliamp 4-cell lipos. These are the largest battery I've ever owned. They actually fit inside very easily, and I'm pretty sure this thing should be able to lift it. Obviously, it's a heavy battery, and I probably don't need to be running it with this, but it fits, and I was super happy about that, because you can have any battery will fit. If this fits, any battery will fit underneath there. Just need to run a battery strap through the frame, and it'll hold. So, the gimbal. This is a Taro T2D gimbal, and I thought this was one of the more popular gimbals that people have. This is the V2, which means it doesn't have the carbon fiber. The carbon fiber might fit differently, but this does not fit. If you look at it, it hits inside here, right in there, with the actual balls right here. It doesn't hold. So, being that, this thing is a gimbal frame built to hold a gimbal, wouldn't you think that they would design it to hold one of the more popular gimbals, like the Taro T2D? Now, I was trying to figure out ways to modify it. If you hang it down below it, the second you hang this port here is where it hits. The second you set this to be just below this, the gimbal, the camera itself, hits the bottom. So that does not work. The only thing I can think of to mount this was to replace these. These are the original carbon fiber tubes that the frame came with. So if it goes through here, there was no room you couldn't get the one hook in through here because it was still hooked. You have to push it off the front. So there wasn't enough room on these here, so I had to cut another carbon fiber tube that I had in half, which now allows for the gimbal to be mounted. If I can, it's difficult to do with one hand here. I'm gonna mount it real quick. So now it mounts nicely with the frame. And I still think it is going to be out of the way of the props. You just gotta watch, the weight. I still think it should be pretty good. Speaking of props, that's another thing. This thing was advertised on Hobby King to fit 10-inch props on her. Those are 12-inch props. There is no clearance issues. You can see it's close right there, but they clear. I'll just put one here. Plenty of clearance between the front and the back motor, and then plenty of clearance between the back motors. So that is an awesome thing for people wanting to run bigger props with this, for heavier lifting, or if you want to lift a DSLR or something like that. This thing will handle up to 12-inch props. That's going to be about the limit, I would say. I don't know if they sell 11. Maybe 11-inch is good enough, but I don't know. 12 is going to be my limit. So, other than that, I can't really think of anything else to go over. Let's see if I have a little list here. This was an idea that somebody had on the discussion on the Hobby King page, and it's actually a brilliant idea, and it will work. This is the back two motors here. You technically could, with just small amounts of re-drilling on these carbon fiber tubes, you could turn this frame into a V-tail quad by bringing these all the way into the center, thumb screws in the closed position, and adjusting the motor mounts to be on the angle that you want them to be. Which I've never flown a V-tail. I don't know anything about them, but I do know that this would probably work. If I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. But like I said, the concept is there. So yeah, all right, guys. Remember to subscribe and like if I was able to help you. If you have any questions, comments about the build, about my interpretation of this frame, anything that you want to talk about on it, feel free. And remember to like. Thanks again, guys. Bye.